Oh, so hello, everybody, all the listeners, all the people who are viewing us right now. I am so excited to interview Laura Rotter. So for those who are watching us live or through our YouTube channel, you are seeing two women who are connected in so many ways. First of all, my son is married to Laura's son, and what a blessing it has been for our family to come together in such a beautiful way. And that really is the first time that the way we got connected. And then later on, I found out that we have so many more things in common. So, so I asked Laura to be my guest on this podcast and for us to talk this time about Laura and about her journey into this profession. So let me introduce formally to you Laura Rotter. She is a CFP, the owner of the True Abundance Advisors, which is a heart-centered, value-based financial planning. That is already so up my alley, I cannot tell you. And after a successful career managing money for institutions, investors, including Citicorp and Para Advisors, Laura discovered mindfulness practices and was drawn to guide professionals facing a big life change to achieve both financial security and life satisfaction. And since making this shift, she has been featured in CNBC, the Wall Street Journal, and other impactful magazines and blogs and women events. And I just want to welcome you to my space, to my Zoom room, to my Facebook, to my YouTube channel, to my podcast, for everybody to know so much more about you. So hello.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Dorice. I am so happy to be here.
Yes, me too. So I want, first of all, before we go into the nitty-gritty of all the things that you do, how did your journey over time became that you do what you do today? Tell us a little bit of your journey.
I'd be happy to. So I had a close to 30-year career as an institutional investor on Wall Street. I always like to start by saying I was 12 when I started. And I often see that career in thirds. So the first 10 years was, this is such interesting work. And I loved what I did and I was paid well for it. So it was like, oh, and I get a paycheck to do this, but it was fascinating work, analyzing companies in different industries and deciding whether or not they were a good investment. And then the middle 10 years of my career, I was raising 3 kids. You know, my family, very close in age, though my husband was the primary caretaker. Meryl became Dr. Mom. I was a pretty busy house, so I didn't really think about it. This is what I earned. This is what I did. And then the last 10 years of my career, I was pretty miserable. The whole industry has shifted from the nerds in high school that found intellectually stimulating work that paid well to the frat boys in college that figured they'd leverage off their relationships to make money. I didn't enjoy the people I work with. I no longer enjoyed the work, but I was trapped by my possessions. I had a 6,000 square foot house and a vacation home and 3 kids in camp and private school and fancy vacations. And I just felt like I can't leave until I found meditation and yoga. And it always sounds trite, but it made me realize that I wasn't going to get a do-over, that if I was sort of clawing my way to the weekend let's say the equivalent of putting on a tight pair of shoes, that I was choosing to be a victim of it rather than saying I can make other choices. And so I left Wall Street. It'll be a decade, the end of November. I sold my big house and bought a smaller home. I sold my vacation home. I will say I benefited from my kids no longer being on the payroll. So that gave me the flexibility to choose the life I've chosen. And I've never been happier. I considered being a yoga teacher. I did teach yoga to my friends and did a teacher training, but I thought, I don't know, tight hamstrings. I'm not really sure that that's my mission. I did feel that I shouldn't throw away the 30 years of comfort level with financial concepts and financial markets. And so I decided to hang out a shingle, started a firm, True Abundance Advisors, because I believe, as I know you do, Dorice, that true abundance is not simply more money, but it's abundance of time and abundance of energy, and they all need to be measured against each other. And I work primarily with women 50 years old or so, going through a life transition, could be thinking about retirement, could be losing a job, could be divorce, who really need clarity and organization for their finances. And I really feel like it's a mission that I'm drawn to.
Wow. Wow. So many gems packed in that few minutes of introductory. When you said I was trapped by my possessions, that is so revealing. We have so many people that I call it living in a cage of gold. And I remember with my friends that worked in a company, I don't want to mention name, but they felt that they were trapped in a golden cage, that everything was, they had so much, and yet it was a cage. And you had this reference, trapped by my possessions. So how hard was it, the decision to shed off all these possessions that allowed you true abundance?
Well, it's interesting. The shedding the possessions, I think once you have a goal, was not that hard. I mean, it's part of the work I do with clients, Dorice, which is, you want more coming in each month than is going out. So it was very clear to me that not only, it wasn't even the mortgage for the 6,000 square foot home. It was the heating the house and the taking care of the lawn. And every time something breaks down, it's got a number of zeros. So it was very clear once I made the decision to leave Wall Street that I needed to sell that house and I needed to sell the vacation home. What is harder to shed, if you will, is an identity of, close to 30 years. And I was the nerd in high school. So there was a certain ego gratification of like, I make a lot of money and, sort of cool to work on Wall Street, for lack of a better way to put it. And that was a harder thing to shift. And then a little anecdote that I actually didn't have the balls to leave. I don't mention it all the time, but I was at Citigroup and there was a company-wide layoff. I had got 10 months of very good severance package. So that's what took place in November 2013. And a couple of days later, I slid down the stairs of my home. I was fine, but I burst out crying. And my husband said to me, "What are you crying about? You've been talking about wanting to leave the industry forever, like you got your dream." And I said, "You're a psychiatrist. What don't you understand about the ability that life is a paradox?" And on the one hand, yes, I was unhappy for a long time, and it was sort of the kick that I needed to make the change. And I was terrified, like, who am I? What do I do next? And, so we as humans often hold conflicting emotions at the same time.
Absolutely. And I think for women is even more, right? The identity of who you are, and you try to be the pleaser, you try to maybe avoid a conflict, and then the more you do it, the difficult feelings continue to rise, and sometimes the resentment. And talking about your amazing husband that I know is just terrific. How was this conversation initially with him to say, you know what? I gotta leave? Because, as you said, you had a great job with a lot of benefits financially. So, and for you to say, I want to leave, how did that conversation end up? Because I remember that conversation with my own husband, and I didn't make all that money that you're making. I had more heartache than money, but yet. So
It was a great question. And I do have an amazing husband, and we've been through an amazing journey together, especially this last decade, but it put a tremendous amount of strain on my marriage. His first reaction was, but we had an agreement. You know, you agreed to be the primary breadwinner. You can't just shirk that agreement. And I said, I don't remember signing that contract. I liked what I did, and I chose to do what I did because it was, like I said, it was intellectually stimulating. I didn't like it anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. And that shifted so much that I still remember in May 2020, so a couple of months into the pandemic, I was disappointed by the growth of my business, and there's still not that many women in the field. And I had a couple of companies reach out to me, say, would you consider joining our firm, you know, help us build out the financial planning part. And every time, Dorice, I had the conversation with them and the people, and I had a stomach ache. Like my body was like, no, but I felt like maybe that's a responsible thing to do. I'll have a guaranteed income. And remember walking with Merrill around the neighborhood and saying, you know, should I consider taking this position? And he looked at me and he said, Laura, you are the most creative you've been in your entire life. You're really building a process for your firm that's uniquely you, and encouraged me to continue. So that's how far he came from, 2013 to 2020. And not that we need permission, but there was something about that conversation. Clearly, I remember it like it happened yesterday, that gave me the okay to be an entrepreneur, which, as you know, has its ups and its downs.
Absolutely. And I think what you said resonated so much with me as a married woman. And I think so many women out there, it could resonate with them one way or another, right? Maybe they'll go to their husband and said, we want to be more in the same thought level with you, and we want to be more vulnerable, and we want to share more. I remember the day that I left, and before I left, and the conversation I had with Bob. And at the beginning, and Bob, fantastic human. And at the beginning, it was, maybe you should just jump to another ship. In other words, go to another job, find another thing that will keep you happy. And I said, no, honey, I need to jump into the ocean, and that is scary for our partners, right? And then fast forward several years, and Bob will be the first one to admit, he said, we are so much happier now as a couple, as a family unit. I see you happy, and we will do that. This is it. And so it could be that the financial will not be as much, or it takes us time to grow, but every time we do that, we enjoy the ride. And I think that's where you are. And just so resonates with me so much. And I love also that you said that you can't have a do-over. We have one life to live.
Yes.
And so what are the choices that we make each day to live our life to the best of what we know today? Maybe different tomorrow.
Right. When you're in your 20s and 30s, drive is different. You need to build a strong, stable financial basis, but we're older now, and we have a different vantage point on our lives, and we recognize that time isn't forever and time isn't guaranteed. And really need to weigh that against. I mean, I often say, I looked back and said, I was using my life to make money, and I want to use my money to make a life that's worth living.
Okay, this should be a little sticker on the back of a car. now I want to use my money to make my life. I used to have my life make my money, and now I want to use my money to make my life. Oh my God, you got this. This is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. So in this transition of your journey, what are the tools that when you do coaching, and tell us more a little bit about your coaching and the people who come to you, and what is their what are some of their tool in their toolbox that you give them?
I'd be happy to. And I guess just to define, I'm not, though I definitely believe that I create a sacred space for people to have conversations with me. I'm not a coach.
Mhm.
I'm actually a financial advisor. So I help people invest their money, but
Yeah.
and one of the most important tools, it sounds so easy, but it isn't, is again, I said this a little bit earlier, spend less than what you earn. You and I have had a conversation, Dorice. I know you're very aware of that. So I guess there's a number of tools I use. The first thing I do is I have people look at what comes in to their bank accounts monthly, not your salary, because we all know out of your salary comes taxes, out of your salary comes maybe 401k contributions, what you're paying for your health insurance, your disability. So what is actually in your bank account at the end of each month? And then after that, what are you spending? I often put it, even if you decide to lie in bed all month, what's still coming out? Your rent or your mortgage, your electricity, your Netflix, your gym membership. What are those already known, often the exact same amount of money that comes out each month? Now, I live in the New York City area, so I know this may not be true for everyone, especially if you're just starting out. But ideally, all those known expenses, maybe a student loan payment, are not more than half of what's coming in. Because you want to be able to have fun. You know, you want to be able to put another 20% in savings, maybe make sure you have enough emergency funds, make sure you can save towards a vacation, you know, holiday gifts that you like to buy, charity. So that's that 20%. And then you want room for maybe a third to play, so that if you want to go see a concert, you want to buy a new pair of shoes. I say to my clients, I don't care. You don't have to tell me what's for restaurants and what's for shoes and what's for a movie. I don't care. I just want you to know that you have some money to spend towards fun. Because if you don't have money to spend towards fun, it's like dieting. Then suddenly one night you go and you eat the entire box of Oreos and the pint of ice cream because I'm finally letting loose. And then you're suddenly using credit cards that cost too much. So paying attention to what you're actually bringing in and what is going out. And, you know, for clients who have less ability to do that, we can set up a specific system where we know what we want to spend each week, and you're spending that in cash or with a debit card. So you can look back. You don't have to find a Sunday to go through your credit card accounts or something, but it's so simple, and it's the hardest thing to do, to really get a handle on what you're spending.
I am
just
so with you. I'm so with you up to here. Oh my God. So spend less than what you earn. What you are spending every month as automatic, like rent, mortgage, all these things. 33%, third, play fun, and 20% for what?
For savings. In addition to your 401k, you should have money in the bank, depending on how secure your job is. For people like us, maybe we should have, you know, a year's worth of our needs in a bank account. If you have a secure job, maybe you only need 3 months in a bank account, but you need, so that when your roof leaks or you blow the tire on your car, you're not suddenly having to put it on a credit card, that you have money sitting in a bank. Or the other thing, people come to me, oh, I finally have some money. Can you invest it for me? Like, are you going to need to touch it in the next 5 to 7 years? Because if you're going to need it when your roof leaks, you're going to need it because in 3 years you want to buy a house. You don't want that in the stock market, so that you suddenly need to withdraw it on the day that the market's down, 5%.
Yes.
So you need emergency savings, and that's ideally. And another thing is to pay yourself first. Maybe set up an automatic transfer. It could be as little as $5, but some automatic transfer from your bank account to a savings account so that you don't see the money sitting there and you spend it.
Okay. I do that. I do move our money from my business to our joint account. And that's how I pay myself, because that money moves down. I'm feeling, okay, it also makes me feel good that I'm contributing to the family household. That to me does that consider paying for myself? Is that I move money from my business to our joint account?
No. If you would tell me that you're moving it from your business to your joint savings account, but if you're putting it in your checking account, the issue is, right, that when you see money, I mean, I will give an example for my personal life, which obviously bothers me, but we're fine. So my husband has a pension. He will be able to collect a pension when he retires. For years, I said to him, Meryl, clients come to me, and in addition to a pension, they have the ability, like a 401k, to put money away each year. Nah, I don't have that. About a year or so ago, I was networking with a woman who works with employees of New York State. And as we're getting off the phone, she's a financial advisor. I said, do New York State employees, in addition to a pension, have the ability to put money away pre-tax? And she's like, oh, yeah, of course. It's called New York State's deferred comp. So ever since we found that out, Merrill is maxing out his deferred comp. Merrill says to me, well, but all we did was lose the tax savings. And but there's a psychological aspect that if there's money in the bank, you say, oh, I'm going to take that extra vacation, or we can buy that nicer car. And I'm sure we made financial decisions that might have been different had he been taking, now it's 30 grand a year, when he was young, and put that away each year, and it's not in your paycheck. So there is a behavioral thing of not seeing the money in the checking account that could change how you spend. So I don't know if that's what you're doing. I know with my business, I know what I need for expenses each month. And so I get paid quarterly because I manage my clients' assets and the money comes out quarterly. I will get paid in a couple of days. And so I know exactly how much I'm going to take out.
Okay. So, I'm so glad that I got that clarified, because always I thought I interpret it wrong. I interpret paying for yourself, meaning that you pay so then you can live on and use that money. But what you're saying, paying for yourself, pay attention to what, pay yourself first, is putting it in savings for later on, which I do all the time. I am like, oh my God, do I follow? I was telling my financial coach friend, I said, I feel like at some point I'm hoarding the money.
Well, that's a whole other thing. I certainly work with clients, especially as we head towards retirement, that money, how we grow up around money, Dorice, as makes such a difference. So I meet people who grew up where their parents really had to decide which bill they were going to pay. And no matter how much money they have in the bank account, they're never comfortable spending it. And so at least I can show them, you can spend this much money and you will be fine. Whether or not they do it is a whole other thing. But you never lose the attitude towards money that you grew up with.
Yeah. I just spoke to my parents a few minutes before our call today. And I was telling my dad, that I have all this work. And so my dad tells me, my dad is 84. And I grew up, from Matan, I didn't grow up with a family with a lot of money. We worked. I was cleaning houses when I was in 9th grade. My first Levi's that I bought and my first Nike shoes was because I cleaned homes so I can have this money. So my dad tells me today, he said to me, Dorice, you are young. You need to work a lot now so that in retirement later on, when you are our age, you will have money. So then I say, my dad, Abba, I am 57. He's like, what do you mean you should work now because you're young? I said, I've been working when I was 20, when I was 30, when I was 40. I'm 57. Like, when is it less? And he's like, and so then you know what his answer was? He said, Dorice, you are now at the peak time of your life. He said, that's what he says. Yeah, my dad is amazing. You're at the peak time of your life. And you should just work as much as you can. Of course, keep yourself healthy, but it's okay to work a lot. That's what he says to me.
Interesting.
So, very interesting, because yeah, I think it's the mindset of coming not from a lot of money,
Yes.
and that's you keep on working until you can't. And I'm not sure that I buy into that.
Well, I will say, and it is one of the benefits of having our own business stories, which is the way I'm working now. On the one hand, yes, there I am. I often have my laptop late into the evening. That's also because I give myself time to center in the morning. And I'm working on things that I define as important, not that someone else who's paying me defines as important. So, God willing, we are healthy enough that we can work for many years, that we're not, again, sort of trying to make it to the end of our working lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. It's also when you love what you do, which clearly you love what you do, is there a time limit on it within the day or within the month or within the year? If you love what you do, and that's what I tell my family, I said, I love what I do. So I don't mind sitting and having the laptop on my lap in the evening when I'm doing some things that I think I enjoy, that I know I enjoy doing. Do you feel the same way?
Yes. I do. I really enjoy the content creation, which can spill over into other times, but I feel like the message, I know your message, which is beautiful. I think the message that I have, that stop the relentless pursuit of more, that it's just as important to have more time and have more energy. And that's not the message that the financial industry, by and large, sends. And so I think it's important to get that message out there.
Yes, let's say that again. Stop the relentless pursuit of more. Just,
Yes.
just sitting with that sentence, which you articulated so beautifully. I mean, I can literally see the image of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So as we, Jews all over the world have started a new year, 5,784. And soon enough, it will be the end of 2023. And every time I think of a word that centers me for the coming year, did you get a chance? And can you share with us, what is your word for the Jewish year or the secular year?
I love that you asked that, Dorice, and I happen to have printed out and cut this word out. It's in my office. I don't know if it'll be backwards when I show it on Zoom. It will be, but maybe people who see it, it's discern.
Discern.
You and I know how much comes into our inbox. Take this workshop, read my book, that there's so much coming at us and it can be overwhelming. And I know we started out before you hit record talking about learning the ability to say no. And so really, and I think part of discernment is creating space to hear that still small voice inside. Like I said, when I was interviewing, thinking of maybe I should go work for someone else, like feeling the discomfort in my body. So really making time to hear myself and my needs and discern what is the next best step that I need to take. So that's been my word.
Wow. Beautiful word, discernment, and the ability to discern. And what I love about this word is that it invites us to monitor our own judgment and to leave judgment at the door, because it is the opposite. You can't have discernment when you're a judgmental human. So I just love that word. It opens up, it's exploring opportunities out there and deciding.
what's important to you and not what's important to your family. And not that we're discounting, but there's so many messages culturally. You know, you need a nicer car, you need a bigger house, you got to update your wardrobe, you know, go to the but what is it that you want? And what is it that will fill your soul and not, you know, someone else's?
Wow. You have filled my soul, and my cup is full because of our talk today. And I hope all the listeners on my podcast and all the viewers on the YouTube channel, as well as the live Facebook, have enjoyed just getting to know you better. How can they reach out to you? What is the best way to reach you?
Thank you for asking, Dorice. So my website is True Abundance Advisors with an O. And you can email me at Laura, Laura, at trueabundanceadvisors.com. I also have a workbook that you can access on the website about how to unblock your money blocks. Women have so many money blocks. So it's a workbook to work with. And then finally, I also have a podcast. You were a guest on my podcast, Making Change with Your Money, where I interview women who've been through a big life transition. I do think the stories are inspiring. And I know my listeners benefit from hearing how people came out the other side of a big life change.
Absolutely. Your podcast is absolutely amazing. I loved listening to it, and I love being a guest on it. And so I'm going to take all of these links and post them on all of the social media that I am going to spread out this podcast and this interview. Thank you so much. I feel blessed by having you on this morning. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. Thank you, Laura, for joining us. And make your day the best day it can be. I know you can. I believe in you. Thank you, everybody.